Here we I can't believe it's February.
It's already February. Yeah.
Which is really odd because January always seems to feel like the month that never ends. And yet somehow whenever February comes around, it feels like, wow, we're already a whole month into the year.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. We're 1/12 of the way done with the year already.
Yeah, you can. I mean, yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right.
It's still snowy. The groundhog saw a shadow. So we got 6 more weeks of winter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. Are there any other rodentia that predict weather other than the groundhog in Pennsylvania?
There is, and I for whatever reason I can't remember what the animal is, but there is another rodent that predicts the weather. But I guess when this first came about, I guess the Germans brought this tradition over, and it used to be
of course we did.
Right,
no.
But it used to be like a chipmunk or a badger. Like it was a different, they adapted to whatever animals we had in Pennsylvania.
Ah, yeah. Gotcha. Okay. So yeah, it was like, all right, well, we'll use a woodchuck instead.
Oh no, it was a that's what it was. It was a hedgehog traditionally, and we don't have hedgehogs. They're illegal to own in Pennsylvania, and
are they really?
They are illegal to own in Pennsylvania.
That's interesting. Yeah. I wonder why.
Because they don't want them reproducing in Pennsylvania and taking over.
Okay.
Yeah. Our beautiful nature. I guess. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Sure. Yeah. Why not?
Yeah.
And speaking of reproducing, we're going to talk about romance scams today.
right before Valentine's Day. Yep.
Yeah, because for all of us that have wonderful things to think about at this time of year, let's definitely talk about how people are being taken advantage of,
Yeah, well, I mean, people are getting into relationships more and more online, and they start virtually, going out to some social event and meeting your future wife or husband is not as common anymore, I guess.
I guess not. I mean, I remember a time when dating online was considered to be just the worst type of method to meet people. I mean, people were embarrassed to say that they had met online whenever I was younger. And now it's the predominant way that it happens, I would say.
But whenever you were dating, there was no online either.
Hey, all right. That's how we're going to play it today. All right. I see. That's fine. You're not wrong. Yeah. So, How did you and Kelsey? Well, you guys met in high school though, right?
We were high school sweethearts, yeah. So I mean, actually, our dads knew each other before we knew each other, and we didn't know it.
Okay.
Yeah. But we met in high school.
So, are there any pictures in your families of like the two of you in the same place at the same time, but you didn't know it?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
Yeah.
But her dad is a contractor, and I remember years later, he came to our house to we were going to get a quote on some work or something like that.
Yeah.
And it was years later that I finally put two and two together and said, okay, hey, that's your dad.
Yeah. How about that?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah.
But you're absolutely right. A lot of people meet online, whether it's the casual sort of hookup apps or whether it's the more personalized types. I don't even know what all the different sites are anymore.
I don't know either. Yeah.
I'm assuming that there are sites out there like Match.com. That was like one of the first
originals,
right?
Yeah.
I think that was like an OG.
Now there's one specific to certain demographics and I mean,
so regardless of how you're out there, and these scams, let's be fair, these scams predominantly target older people.
Yeah, but
not exclusively,
right?
But predominantly.
Yes. But actually, targeting younger people is on the rise too, because the younger people are the ones using those apps more.
Yeah. But there are things that you can definitely do to try to, we're not telling you that you can't use these apps. I mean, so many people do, and by and large, like most things, if you're conscious about how you're using them and you're aware of what could be an issue out there, hopefully you can prevent some of these things from happening to you just from being aware of your surroundings. It's sort of like walking down the street in the middle of New York City. As long as you're kind of aware of your surroundings, you're less likely to be mugged than the person that's just obliviously walking down the street not paying attention. Right?
Yeah. But the problem with these kinds of scams is there's emotion involved. And
Oh yeah.
once emotions involved, then that's all you think about. You know, you look past whatever, you know, downfall that other person may have, and you get taken. Yeah.
Yeah, that's totally fair. And you know, for some of these people, especially the older people that are affected by this, i- sometimes they're exposing themselves to these people as far as saying, you know, they go online and they admit that they were recently divorced, or they admit they were recently widowed or something like that.
Yeah.
And they sort of set themselves up for these scammers to find them in those ways. And these scammers will target people in their most vulnerable emotional states.
Yep. Yep.
With the promise of having some kind of companionship, somebody to talk to. Some of these people, especially older people, they don't have family that live nearby anymore. Their family has moved away. And if their wife or their husband has passed away, or they've gotten a divorce or something like that, they find themselves very, very lonely. And really, a lot of these things don't start out from a traditional like teenager in love type place, and more of just a desire to have some sort of connection or companionship to talk about.
Yeah,
you know,
that's true.
Talk with people.
Yeah. Sadly, these people are con artists. I mean, you are not the first one that they've taken advantage of. They do this for a living. So they're good at it, you know. They're going to tailor whatever their story, you know, whatever your story is, they're going to mimic it just to build that trust, to build that, you know, that relationship.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of the different scams that are out there. And I know that we have talked about scams in general in the past quite a few times on this show, regardless of, you know, cybersecurity and all that kind of stuff. But this is, while it uses a digital component, it's a little bit different in my mind than a traditional sort of, I'm going to steal your debit card type scam.
Yeah, they're usually drawn out a little bit longer. It's not like an immediate, you know, hey, this is the IRS calling you, you owe money, pay it now. This is like a, you know, it can be a long drawn out process.
Yeah,
know?
I mean, this is the closest thing that I can think of to a traditional sort of 1980s con artist.
Yeah, yeah.
That sort of long con idea that they're going to invest all this time and everything in you to try to convince you to give them as much money as they can.
Right. And that's the thing too. They're not taking you for $5 or $10 because it's, you know, a long drawn out process. They're taking you for thousands, tens of thousands, you know, whatever they can get out of you. Yeah.
And the longer they keep the con going, sometimes the more they can extract, because you become more attached and you become more trusting. Human beings have this sort of mental, I don't want to say it's a bad thing, but the longer we know somebody, the more we tend to trust them. Right.
Yeah, sure. Right.
And so when you first meet that person, and when I say meet, I mean, I'm like meet, you know, you first encounter this person online.
Yeah.
They're a complete stranger, and you're less likely on day one to just give that complete stranger $100,000. But if that person can keep you on the hook long enough and convince you that they are a reputable person, convince you that they are somebody that's in need, because contrary to popular belief, most human beings want to help other human beings, especially if they feel an emotional connection toward that other human being.
Yeah.
The longer they can get you into that, and the longer they can keep you in that mode, the more they can likely try to get from you.
Oh, sure.
You know, down the road.
Sure. And a lot of times these start out small too. You know, you build a relationship, and they may ask for, you know, bus fare, or you know, they're late on their rent and they can't pay their rent. So, hey, can you lend me some money? And then it grows. You know, it's kind of like a test. You know, and then it grows exponentially from there.
Yeah. One of the things, you know, so some things that they usually tell you to look for, because like I said, sometimes just being aware of how these at the end of the day, these things are scripted. These things they have tested these things. They know what works, and they follow a pattern. Right. You may not necessarily pick up on the pattern right away because you haven't been part of the pattern repeatedly the way that they have, but they have learned what works and what doesn't, and they're going to keep repeating those things. It's no different than if you get good at basketball and you know that from a particular point on the court, you're going to hit that shot 8 out of 10 times. You're going to try to move yourself toward that position on the court, even if it's unconsciously, because you know you've had success there before. Right. So these people, they will follow a certain pattern of previous success, and that means that if you know what to look for, you have a chance of maybe spotting some of those patterns and maybe it's a couple of red flags you can look for. So one of the things that they say is that they rush into these intense emotions. Once they sort of catch you and get you on the hook and get you talking to them, right? Then it's making all these promises early and sort of trying to lure you in and getting you emotionally invested quickly.
Okay, yeah.
So if you're the type of person that typically takes a while to warm up to people or something like that, most people, they sort of have that. I think everybody that's been in love remembers what it was like that first time you kind of fell in love with somebody, and you have
that like bliss, that high. You're not really thinking straight.
Yeah, and they're gonna push on that, right? If they feel that you are starting to feel that kind of emotion, they are gonna try to just just pile on to that emotion to get you in as deep and mentally sort of disengaged as possible, getting you listening to your emotions more than listening to your brain.
Yeah, sure.
Right. The other thing that you're going to find with some of these people is that, like you said, they start asking like, I don't know about you. I have a difficult time even asking for friends to borrow some money.
Oh gosh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. If me and my friends were out to dinner and I realized I needed to borrow $10, I would feel bad about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. These people don't have those qualms. No. They're going to start asking you for, like you said, they're going to say, hey, oh man, I'm here chatting with you via text messages and I'm stuck at the bus station because I don't have bus fare. Is there any way you could Venmo me $5?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And you think to yourself, oh, if it's $5, sure. What the heck? I'm going to be a nice person. I want this person to like me because I'm feeling in love with them, or I'm feeling infatuated with them, so you do those kinds of things. And then they start to realize, oh, you're the type of person that will do stuff like that.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
And so, like you said, that those amounts start getting larger and larger and larger.
It's like other scams too. I mean, credit card and debit card scams now. I don't know if you've been, had any compromised or anything like that, but now these fraudsters are sending in transactions of $0 just to see if that card is on, and they can ping it. Once they see that, hey, that 0 transaction went through, then they start moving and increasing their pool on you.
Yeah. And sometimes it's in the hopes that you just don't notice right away.
Right.
Right. Because a lot of people don't keep a check register anymore.
True.
They sort of rely on just looking at online banking and their transaction history, and that's fine to a point, as long as you keep a mental log of what you've spent money on.
Right.
But if you start looking at your statement, or you look at your online banking profile and you start to see, man, I don't remember spending $16 on that, like, or what is that and it would be helpful, quite frankly, if some merchants would be more descriptive in their descriptions
right
of what things are. But yeah, so
sorry, side note.
No, yeah. You're absolutely right. So what else do some of these people do that people can look out for?
Asking for payments that are not your traditional payments, prepaid debit cards, or crypto,
So not as
traceable.
So not saying, hey, can you Apple Pay me this?
Right, because that's traceable.
Yeah.
They're asking for money in ways that it can't be traced, or not easily traced, at least.
Yeah. That's a good point.
Yeah.
The other thing that I was reading about is especially as these things get longer, and these, I hesitate to call them relationships, but any interaction between two people could be considered a relationship, right? So as they reel you in and the relationship gets longer and you become more attached to this person,
invested, yeah,
there's a natural desire for most people to want to move from being online to being in person.
Yeah.
Right.
And
these people will oftentimes find a way, or find multiple reasons why that can't happen.
Right.
Right. Either they live too far away and they can't afford a plane ticket, or they had or you were supposed to meet this weekend, but they had some sort of an emergency that came up. Maybe it's
they're deployed overseas. They're their just job doesn't allow them to see you. Right?
Yeah, that's a good point. Maybe they claim to be in the military or something, or they claim to be somewhere where they just can't. They're not allowed to leave.
Yeah. And that was another one that I saw was these like fake profile, because we're talking about catfishing pretty much.
Yeah.
So a lot of these profile pictures that you see on these dating apps or these social media, they're taken from someone else, or now they're enhanced with AI to make it more appealing. A lot of times these fake profiles and fake profile pictures are people that are in professions like a soldier or a doctor, or someone that has a high valued profession, or
one that you would sort of natively trust.
Right.
We're predisposed to want to trust doctors and lawyers and military professionals and things. We're not necessarily predisposed to trust other professions like those.
Right.
So I could see that. And you're right, with generative AI these days, they can generate an image of somebody. They don't even have, like, one of the things they used to tell you to do was to do a reverse image search. Take their profile, take this person's profile image, and then
pop it into a search engine.
For those of you that know how to do that, you can go to Google and you can actually look for a picture, right? And then if that image shows up on 25 different dating sites with 25 different names, you could start to feel pretty confident that this person isn't who they say they are.
Yeah.
But now with generative AI, they can just generate a new profile picture for every one of them. So now you can look, and to be fair, things like generative AI are getting better at stuff like this. But you can, if there's a thing that humans have, especially with looking at other humans' faces, where you can kind of tell.
If it's too perfect, if it's too good to be true, the whole sentiment, if it's too good to be true, it's probably not worth it.
If you're looking at this profile picture and you think to yourself, my gosh, this person has never had a pimple in their entire life.
Right.
They don't have any sort of weird, like, oh, when I was 5 years old, I bumped my head on a rock scars. They don't have any.
Filters can handle that. It's more of the the symmetry. It's everything's too symmetrical.
And everything's just too on point. Right. So you got to look for that stuff. And again, the fact that these con artists, romance scammers,
right,
rely so much on these these long cons, right? In a weird way, that can backfire on them if you are doing what you would do with any relationship. If you're talking to this person and for the last 3 months, they've been telling you that they are living in the biodome in France, right? And they can't leave, right? And then you're having some sort of a general sort of throwaway conversation, and they mentioned that they went down to the local grocery store to pick up carrots and peas. Well, that should be like wait a minute, I thought you couldn't leave your bio type, right?
But again, those emotions play into it, and you 9 times out of 10, I would assume you just let that go because you're not even thinking about that.
But I'm saying we should, like, make sure that their stories are adding up, and that might be an oversimplified sort of example that I'm throwing out there. But if their story doesn't add up, if they tell you that they are deployed overseas, but yet they know an awful lot about the news that's happening locally in some small town in Montana. I mean, think about it. And you're absolutely right. When your emotions get involved, you get very defensive and you get very protective of that other person, and you get very protective of that relationship. And honestly, I think the advice I'm about to give goes for even healthy relationships. Don't get so defensive about that relationship that you don't listen to your family and you don't listen to your friends. You don't listen to the people that are trying to give you objective advice.
Get an outside opinion. I mean, just talk about your relationships with someone else, just to get a different perspective.
Sure.
Yeah.
And especially if the person that you're in an online relationship with is advising you to not tell your friends.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You know, if they're saying, "Hey, listen, you know, I'm in a really, I don't know, I'm a professional sports figure, or I'm somebody that's sort of a pseudo celebrity, and if it gets out that I'm talking to you, it's going to be a problem."
Yeah, this isn't a Romeo and Juliet where we can't be talking together, and you know.
Yeah,
right.
you know, anytime that someone's advising you in a romantic relationship, whether it's a dating scam or whether it's a legitimate, you met this person and you've known that they lived in your town for the last 25 years, you don't. I know it's hard from the emotional standpoint, but don't get so enamored that you don't listen to the people who love and care about you, because you know we have seen that even in our industry, in our local bank, where we have experienced people that it doesn't seem to matter who tells them that they are being scammed. You know, you can go to these people and you can say, "You are being taken advantage of," in very plain words, and they will not believe you.
Yeah. Because they trust that other person more than they trust you.
Right. Yeah. You know, and you don't want to let go of that. And I totally get it. Like, I know that feeling, like you don't want to lose that feeling of love and attention and all that kind of stuff, you know? But boy, you know, just be aware.
Yeah.
You know,
definitely
be aware. I have chiming happening in the background. I don't know if anybody can hear that or not, but
what else can we do to stay safe? We talked about being too perfect, or isolating you from friends and family. You had mentioned that, you know, these scammers know what works and what doesn't. So they've a lot of their text, their messages and stuff are pre-scripted. So just like you said, you know, with the profile picture of doing a reverse search, if this is, you know, it's truly a fully online conversation, you can take that text, that messaging that they're sending you, and put it in that same search engine and see if, hey, this is, you know, something that's been circling around the internet before. You know?
Yeah, 100%. And just sort of adding on or dovetailing to that, I don't know about you, I have definitely dealt with customer service via chat. And kind of like whenever you can look at a person's face and you kind of go, I don't know that that's exactly right. There are times whenever you're talking to these people on a chat service, and you can just tell that they're using a pre-canned response.
Yeah.
Because it's close to what you said, but it doesn't entirely sort of match up to what you said. So you know, you could be saying, well, can I take a look at this sweater in a different color? And they're saying sweaters are available in many colors.
Right.
Well, okay, but that's not really what I asked, right? You know, it's close, but it's not the same.
Right.
So you're right. If people are using these pre-canned responses, pre-scripted responses, particularly because some of these scammers are overseas, they're not necessarily native English speakers.
That's a good one. Yeah.
Right. So they're using these pre-canned responses, and they're close, but they're not right.
Yeah.
Or if they're using slang, but they're using it wrong. Things like that.
Yeah, our colloquialisms, they're
sure.
not 100% on. You're right.
Yeah, right. You know, that's one of the easiest ways to determine whether somebody is a native speaker of any language.
Yeah.
Is if, you know, I think I was watching something just the other day, and they said that if you're ever in Mexico and you are trying to speak Spanish, you should almost never say de nada. Because they never say that. They don't say de nada.
Okay.
That would be like us saying you're welcome to every time somebody says thank you or hey, that's great.
Okay.
You know, but we don't say that. We say, hey, no problem.
Yeah.
We say that's okay.
Right.
Happy to do it. My pleasure. Right.
Yeah.
But we hardly ever really say you're welcome.
Yeah.
Right.
That's true.
And so it's the same thing like in Spanish. Like if you're constantly saying de nada, a lot of native Spanish and Mexican speakers will say like, yeah, you're totally not. You're not from around here, you know?
Yeah. Right.
So that's the kind of stuff you can look out for too when it comes to these things.
Yeah.
But I think that, you know, going back to it, I think that really the biggest thing is these are effective because of the emotional attachment that's developed.
Absolutely.
And so you have to look for these red flags early before you become that emotionally invested that it's just, you become blind. They say love is blind.
Love
right?
is blind. Right.
And I would argue that it is also deaf and stupid. And
right. And talk to your family and friends about your relationships, because you may be blind to it.
Absolutely. Let's touch on this too, because I think it's important. What do you do if you happen to fall for one of these? So if somebody finally convinces you that you've been taken advantage of, or you realize it on your own that you've been taken advantage of, or you're being taken advantage of, what are some of the things that you can do?
Yeah, if you've been taken advantage of, definitely talk to your bank or your credit card company or whoever, that transaction went through. Their fraud department, they may be able to help you get your money back, or at least nail down who was this fraudster. You can report it to the FBI. There's a couple of places. There's the FBI's Internet Crime Complaint Center.
And the Identity Theft Resource Center. I mean, there are definitely things online that where you can report these folks. Now, full transparency, a lot of these people never get caught.
They don't. Yeah.
But the more people who report them, the more likely it is that somebody in law enforcement, the FBI, Interpol, especially if it's international, going across international boundaries, that sort of thing, the more data they can compile, the better chance they have of sort of triangulating things and finding that person.
Sure.
So based on your one interaction, it may not be very likely that they get caught, but your interaction and being reported may down the road aid in getting them caught.
Yeah.
Because they're going to do this again. They're going to do this they're probably doing this with multiple people right alongside you.
Right.
They're not doing it's like that old trope whenever, in the 1980s, and somebody would be fighting a big group of people, but the big group of people would be kind enough to send one fighter in at a time, right? And the rest of them would just stand on the periphery and wait for that person to get beat up by the hero.
Okay, your turn.
Until they would run in. Like, these people are not doing that. Yeah. They're scamming you, and they're scamming 20 other people all at the same time.
So it's important to report anything like this. And then that's the sad statistic is, I think it was like 13% of scams are reported because people were embarrassed that they got taken.
True. I mean, and I totally get that. Yeah. I mean, just like I said, I'm embarrassed to ask my friends for $10 to cover me if I happen to forget my wallet and can't pay for dinner.
Yeah.
And these are people I've known for 30 years. Right. I can't imagine how I might feel if I had to report that I had sent tens of thousands of dollars from my savings to some random person that I didn't really know because they had emotionally manipulated me into doing it.
Right.
So I totally understand that. There's no shame in feeling that sort of, oh man, I can't believe I did this, Yeah.
If anything, it should help make you feel good that you may be protecting someone else.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. So, while I totally understand that emotion as well, these people know what they're doing. And like I said, they're following a script. They've tested things. They know what works. They know what doesn't. You shouldn't feel necessarily bad about being one of the people that was caught up in it.
No.
Especially not so bad that you don't report it.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
yeah, definitely keep that in mind. Just as a statistic, I looked at this in 2025, victims lost $1.3 billion in the United States alone.
Wow.
Through these kinds of scams.
Wow.
$1.3 billion.
Yeah. And that's a steady increase from years previous. I think like 2021, it was a third of that or half of that or something like that. I mean, it's increasing steadily year after year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And while those numbers are terrible and you don't want to see them continue to escalate, I think it illustrates objectively that you are not alone.
Yeah.
If you're listening to this podcast or you're watching this podcast, because, sometimes you watch things like this or listen to things like this because your family or friends are telling you something and you're trying to verify that you're not being taken advantage of. That's not happening to me.
Yeah.
They say it is, but I listened to this podcast and they told me blah, 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 right? I mean, how many times have people done things like that?
Oh, yeah.
But if you're listening to this and you're objectively going, man,
that sounds so familiar.
That's really familiar. Yeah. Or that maybe my daughter or my son or my friends, maybe they're not wrong. please don't regress back to the idea of convincing yourself that you're right. Look for some of these things, test the waters. You like I said, it can backfire on them. The fact that these long cons, they give out a lot of information too. Try to get as much information out of them as you can without giving up a bunch of your own.
Right. Yeah. You don't want to do identity theft or anything like that. Right.
Don't tell them, where you work. Don't things like that. But if you can get more information out of them, that's more information you can then pass on to law enforcement or whatever. Not advocating you become some sort of a vigilante,
right?
But the information you collect because you've been part of this scam can be helpful.
Yeah,
is I guess where I'm saying.
Yeah. Don't delete all your messages if you have been scammed. You may need some evidence to give to law enforcement. Yeah.
That is a very good point. Plus, if you take screenshots of these things or keep the messages natively in your device on your computer and your phone, they can see, the profile picture and the name and stuff. But it never hurts to take a screenshot anyway, because sometimes they have the ability to go in and delete certain things. They can delete their profile.
Yeah.
And then when they delete their profile, sometimes their profile pic and their screen name and stuff goes with it. But if you screenshot it,
there's evidence.
It's not going to go anywhere, right? Because it's a photo on your phone now,
right?
So yeah, but so I think just to wrap this up, just try to remember that first of all, you're not the only person that this has happened to. There are red flags you can look for, and you should definitely do that, no matter where in this process you think you might be. If you just met somebody yesterday, or you've been talking to somebody for 6 months. There are red flags you can look for, and if you're objective about it, you can start to put the pieces together and start to decide, okay, is this legit or is it not? Have we been planned to be meeting up together 5 or 6 times over the last 5 or 6 months, and every single time something has happened on the other person's end that has prevented them from meeting me? If every photo I've ever seen of them looks like it came out of a Walmart photo frame, right? That kind of stuff, start to think, and particularly if friends and family are telling you, hey, there's something off with this. There's something weird about this.
Listen to them.
Yeah. Don't necessarily, pass it off as, oh, you're just lonely, or you're sour grapes, or you don't want what's best for me, or you don't understand, or I get all that. I totally do. But don't just blindly keep following this path, because, man, it's hard. And you mentioned something about telling your bank, and your bank might be able to do some things to recover certain things. But it really depends on how you've sent that money. And you mentioned that before. If they're saying to you, hey, I don't want you to send me the money for this via your bank. I don't want you to send it to me via some sort of a traditional payment platform, but rather I want you to wire me money. Or I want you to go to the store and buy a prepaid debit card and mail that to me instead, or something. Man, those are red flags.
Oh yeah,
those are really red flags. And those are once money is wired, once you've purchased a prepaid gift card and mailed it, there's no getting that money back.
Yeah.
It's gone.
I mean, and you could lose money that you never even had. I mean, another one of these scams is, and I don't fully understand why you would do this, but the fraudster will send you a check and ask you to deposit it in your bank, and then take the money out and mail it to them. If that check is bad and you've already sent that money, you're now out tens of thousands of dollars that never existed.
Oh yeah,
yeah. And if it did exist and that money was legitimate from that check, but it was taken or it was acquired by some illegal activity, now you're a money mule.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now you're complicit
too. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
in this whole thing.
Right.
And so that brings up another point that I didn't think of, but it's something else to keep an eye on. If somebody does do something like that to you, if your paramour sends you a check and says, hey, I want you to deposit this, and then turn around and then take, I'm going to send you a check for $10,000. I want you to keep 1,000 of it for your trouble. And then I want you to mail $9,000 back out to some other place or something else or whatever. Wow. That's a giant red flag.
Yep.
And hopefully much like your friends and your family, hopefully when you take that check in, your bank is saying,
notice that. Yeah.
Your bank is saying, hey, there's something wrong here. Right. We're going to have to put a hold on this check, or we're going to have to do something. And then you're going to get angry.
Yeah.
You're going to get angry, and you're going to say, I don't understand why you as my bank, I want to do this. I want to send this check. This is my money. I can do with it what I want.
Because we've seen this before.
Right. Your bank is trying to help you. Believe it or not, your bank is trying to help you. So, I'm speaking from experience, and if you're if you're listening or you're watching this and you think to yourself, man, that happened to me last week, and I yelled at my bank, I'm telling you, I don't know your bank, I don't know you, but I'm telling you, that's what good banks will do, is they will tell you, hey, there's something wrong with this, because they're looking out for you, right? They're looking out for your best interest, So, all right, hey, listen, if anybody has other questions or issues or anything like that, drop something in the comments. Please let us know. We like reading comments. We like seeing feedback, and we don't get as much of it as we'd like, to be quite frank. But the more times that we get comments and feedback, the more things we can talk about on the show that apply to what you want to hear. So, but we don't know what you want to hear unless you tell us. So, you can click the link in the description. You can send us a message, a direct message. You can leave a comment if you're on YouTube or something like that. We do read them.
Drew's tired of, commenting and reading his own comments. So
that's, I get lonely. What can I say?
Fall victim.
I'm in a romance camp with myself. I've created some sort of locked off version of my personality.
And definitely
on our page. No, but I mean, really, let us know. And if you like the show, I know, every single thing that you watch on YouTube, everything you listen to, they say the same thing, like, subscribe, all that kind of stuff. But the bottom line is that liking and subscribing and doing those things tells the algorithm, the almighty algorithm, that you enjoyed or you interacted with this material, and that helps. So please, if you are a subscriber, thank you. But still, that doesn't mean you don't ever have to hit that little like button. It takes less than a half a second. Hit the like button, tell the algorithm that you liked what you heard. And leave us a comment and tell us what you want to know.
Well said.
Awesome. Thanks.
Happy Valentine's Day, Joe.
Happy Valentine's Day, Jeff.
This podcast focuses on having valuable conversations on various topics related to banking and financial health. The podcast is grounded in having open conversations with professionals and experts, with the goal of helping to take some of the mystery out of financial and related topics, as learning about financial products and services can help you make more informed financial decisions. Please keep in mind that the information contained within this podcast and any resources available for download from our website or other resources relating to bank chats is not intended and should not be understood or interpreted to be financial advice. The hosts, guests, and production staff of Bank Chats expressly recommend that you seek advice from a trusted financial professional before making financial decisions. The hosts of Bank Chats are not attorneys, accountants, or financial advisors, and the program is simply intended as one source of information. The podcast is not a substitute for a financial professional who is aware of the facts and circumstances of your individual situation. Thank you for listening. Please check out our full library of episodes, which can be found on the AmeriServ.com website. You can also download or stream the podcast from your favorite podcast app.